Words from the Gospel. Take up your cross and follow me, in the name of God, Source, Word, and life-giving Spirit. Amen. It's Vestry Sunday, so I'm going to talk much more about our church than the gospel, but just an opening comment about our gospel as I think it pertains to what we're going to do in just a moment. The disciples have started to follow Jesus, and he has done wonderful and great things in Galilee, especially in the Gospel of Mark, where we have 3 passion predictions. 3 times Jesus will tell his disciples that he will be going to Jerusalem to be handed over, to be arrested, crucified, and then rise again. But in each of those moments, the disciples don't understand. In each of those moments, they wonder, well, why would we do that? That sounds like a terrible plan. And Peter here is the one who expresses it most clearly. Wants to go back to Galilee, wants to go back to where great acts of power, miracles, wonderful things were happening. People were healed and liberated and freed. And he cannot understand why going to Jerusalem, going to the point of self-giving, the gift of life from Jesus himself, will be the ultimate way to free us and liberate us. So he wants to look back and return. And Jesus says, no, we must go forward. In some ways, Vestry is a little bit like that. We always have to stop and look back and see what happened last year, mostly because you want to know if we spent the money in the right way or the wrong way. But then we also have to look forward and look towards the ministry that lies ahead of us and talk about what that ministry looks like and talk about where we're going to be focusing our time in 2024. So it's both a look back and a look forward, a little bit like our gospel today. And hopefully, as we look forward, there will also be lots of moments when we can see the sacrifices, not just as taking up our cross in a negative or painful way, but in a way that gives life, following in the self-giving life of Christ. So let's look back on 2023. A little later on, Steve will give you lots of information about the results from 2023, and I have to thank him for catching a fairly substantial error in our Vestry report, which had the numbers from 2023, but his report from 2022. So that has now been corrected, and you can get a fresh copy of the Vestry report at the back of the church, and a new copy has been circulated and emailed for those who are accessing it digitally. So thank you, Steve. A last-minute save at 9:30 this morning. The results were good, and they were very positive, so I'll let him talk about them, but I want to focus on 3 little things in my report. On the Hill, Campfire Compline, and Transfig the Hill. On the Hill is a program that started at this church well before I arrived, and it was an opportunity to recognize the missional potential of our green space. And we've used it from everything from a concert to a movie to blessing pets to fairs, and the list will grow and continue to evolve as we think of creative ways to be on the Hill. Have a couple special memories from 2023. The 3rd movie on the Hill was Labor Day weekend, or thereabouts. I think the Friday after Labor Day weekend. And we had the largest attendance of the 3 films, and I watched Finn sell over $300 worth of popcorn during How to Train Your Dragon. I couldn't believe it. I thought, well, that's it. Finn's going to get a job in the movie business, you know. At the beginning of the year, we'd bought a popcorn machine, and we thought, oh, well, you know, might be a waste of money. Turns out it was a money generator. It was wonderful to have 3 films last year. It was very ambitious. We'd never done 3 before, but we did those 3 films, and I want to thank especially Anne, who was the driving motivation behind the 3 films, and as well everyone who helped out with those. The music nights on the Hill. We had 4 shows. 2 of them, unfortunately, were weather impacted. However, the final show was our musicians, an opportunity to showcase the music that we have and share together on Sundays with our neighbors. And for me, it's always the most special of the shows. And I was particularly touched by the piece that David chose to play for us, a little piece by J.S. Bach, a Goldberg variation-inspired prelude. Was it not, David? Yeah. And it made me laugh because David is a musician who is able to play in all sorts of different types of genres. At Water's Edge, it's very contemporary and modern. In the morning here, he plays everything from the organ to the piano. I think Devin, if I'm not mistaken, had him on a maraca a couple of weeks ago. And it was very, very wonderful to showcase our own musicians and see the breadth and depth of the talent that we have in our own community. Campfire Compline. We'd been doing Campfire Compline the previous year, going out, trying to do Compline outside, but we reimagined it in 2023, made it summer camp focused, got the marshmallows out, had a community meal, and we grew a wonderful praying community on Thursday evenings to, on average, over 20 people by the end of the fall. And we extended it from the end of September to the end of October. And as the end of October approached, people said, why aren't we continuing into November? And I mentioned, well, it's cold. But it was a wonderful affirmation of how much that ministry had meant. I'd like to thank especially Carol, who is somewhere here, who became our grill master, and Kylene and Patty and Frida, who also generously helped to support the meal that preceded Campfire Compline, and to Dan and Paul, who helped set up, bring the chairs out. It's a lot of work to go out onto the hill, but it's so rewarding and so enriching. In a serendipitous moment, we discovered in the fall that we double booked ourselves, and the scouts were on the hill at the same time. And then we had to move down to the sign, but it ended up being a wonderful way of God guiding us to be closer to the street level, so people could interact and engage with us just a little bit more before we wandered up on top of the hill to pray. Transfig the Hill. And I know it's complicated having On the Hill and Transfig the Hill. We're going to come up with some rebranding in 2024. Transfig the Hill. Those 3 pillars of connection, character, and kids. Where is Susan? Susan and Steve decided to get together and work on a handrail for our garden doors. And I am ever so grateful because it has moved us towards that idea of making our church more accessible as we move towards using the garden doors. The sign above the hill. What a special moment to have Primate Linda Nichols with us blessing our new sign. When I thought of the idea of the sign, I had spent a lot of time standing on top of the hill and looking at the church, imagining what it would be like if there was a sign there. And I thought, that'll be good. It was much, much better than I expected. And I'm so grateful to Ken Van Winkle, who made the sign. And Ken and I are still in talks about some more things that we can do with signs on the hill. The other big piece of character was lights and power. My dad spent several weeks, I've kind of lost track of how many, out on the hill as an electrician, electrifying the hill, giving us power so that we could worship outside in an easier way, pulling an Ethernet cable over, putting putting lights on the hill, re-putting lights on the hill, and then re-putting lights on the hill several times. And they were so appreciated by the Scouts when they did their Christmas tree sale this past December. And then, of course, our summer camp. And Hillary's not here with us now, but I'm happy to report that Hillary will be coming back. But it was so wonderful to have summer camp back in this church after the COVID pause. And my special thanks to Audrey and Finn and Irene and Henry as well, who was a junior leader, who took up the mantle of mentoring and caring for the younger children in our parish who came to camp. Of course, the last piece was transferring $20,000 that we'd raised into a special designated fund for Transfig the Hill. And unbeknown to many people in the parish, that created a whole lot of work for the corporation. So my special thanks to Camelini and to Patty and to Steve. And the four of us have been working very, very hard in the past year to sort out how to report on our consolidated trust fund investments. And Steve will have more to say about that during our vestry meeting. So that was looking back. Looking forward. In 2024, we have the continued focus on Transfig the Hill. And in order to help us move towards that 5-year vision and goal, we're going to have a few people working on that in a coordinator role. Obviously, it's going to cost a lot of money, so it's important to apply for some grants, and I'm very grateful that Susan Ampleford, a member of the advisory board, has agreed to be the grant writing coordinator. Susan already helped me apply for a grant, not a Transfig the Hill grant, but we worked together and applied for a grant, and Jen assures me that maybe I'll hear back from the committee one day. So we're still hoping that there's a little diocesan grant money perhaps in the works in 2024, but there's going to be a committee that is struck that is going to explore different granting options within the diocese and within our province as well. The Smart Tech Coordinator next year is going to be Marcia. Thank you, Marcia. She's also on advisory board. Now, you might be asking, what on earth is a Smart Tech Coordinator? It's a legitimate question. So I'm going to try to help us understand that perhaps at your home you might have something like a smart thermostat, or you might have something like keyless entry, or you might have a fancy doorbell where you can see when the package gets delivered and you can look it up on your phone, that type of thing. These are kind of called smart technologies that help us in our homes. We're moving towards that in our church as well. Marcia is going to be moving us forward on the interior of our building so that we have doors that are automized, keyless entry, keyless access. We have doors that also, if you press a button, it opens up a truly accessible door. And also doors that are more secure with a security system, security cameras. Important part of that is because our building is now used by many space users, and we need to have a greater level of security and control over the interior of our spaces. The other big part of Marcia's role will be the reimagining of our live stream setup, moving towards a setup where it's out for good, stable, and secure, and doesn't have to be taken away and packed up at the end of every service. The social justice coordinator is going to be Heather. Heather is the advisory board chair, and she has agreed to step into a role that was really vacated when Deb left. Deb was spearheading our involvement with the Roehampton shelter. Heather has picked up some of that work in the past, doing the Lenten food drive and the Advent food drive, and she's going to step into a greater role as the social justice coordinator. Each of those three coordinators will gather around them a few members of the parish. If you're interested in helping in any of those three areas, feel free to approach me. So where are we going with Transfig the Hill in 2024? We learned in a very painful way that it's quite important to accelerate our accessibility to the hill this past year when Patty slipped and fell on the embankment. And so we know that waiting until 2028 to build an accessible ramp on the hill is not quick enough. We need to move faster. So we'll be putting steps that lead up onto the hill starting from around the pollinator garden. I know there's already a set of steps that lead onto the hill. They're pretty terrible steps, if we're being honest. So these will be gentler steps, easier steps, and also with nice handrails. Of course, because we had another successful campaign in 2023, we're also going to transfer $20,000 into the Consolidated Trust Fund towards Connection. Character. Donald and I have been talking about the Northwest Garden. You might be asking, there is no Northwest Garden. What is he talking about? Well, in the past, there was a garden that was on either side of the stone steps that lead up to the northwest corner of the church. And we are going to resurrect, so to speak, that garden over a period of 2 seasons. Season 2024 will be a season where we prepare for the garden, clear away some of the things that have crept in that we might not want in the future. And then in 2025, a season of planting. For the kids pillar, I'm very happy to report that at the end of the last camp, Irene went up to Hillary and said, "I had so much fun, will you come back next year?" And Hillary said, "I don't know." Well, I've spoken with Hillary, and she said she will come back and lead another summer camp at Church of the Transfiguration. And so her and I are working on the best possible date for our summer camp in 2024. And those are our 3 pillars. Those are the ways that we're continuing to transfig the hill in 2024. Those are the ways that we're continuing to move forward as a parish. I invite your prayers for our parish in the year ahead, your prayers for our vision and mission, and most especially your prayers for the leadership team here at Church of the Transfiguration. It can be a lonely place sometimes, but there's so much joy to be found in serving in this parish. Thanks be to God. Amen.